Hello, everyone. Welcome along. It's a very special betting weekly WTA show. It's me, your host, Nigel Seeley. And I'd say joining me as per usual, it's our WTA handicapper, Rory Jiwani, and it's Wimbledon week. The waiting is finally open. You can get out the strawberries and cream, put your umbrella up because we know the inevitable rain will be coming. But who's going to be crowned the women's champion at Wimbledon? A tournament throws up a whole lot of surprises. To answer the questions I'm going to pose to him, to break down the bracket, to look at the best odds, and to go through the best bets with the best tennis betting company out there, Bet Rivers. I'd like to say joining me is my good friend Rory Jiwani. Rory, how are you? Waiting for Wimbledon, looking forward to it.
I am, yeah. It's it should be fairly good. We've had an interesting week of final warm-ups in Bad Homburg and Eastbourne. Of course, this week, it looks like Donna Vekic is going to make the final this week in Bad Homburg. She's 4-love up in the first set in her semi-final. Eastbourne didn't quite go to plan. Actually, Bad Homburg, I did back Veronika Kudermetova, who seemed to be struggling with illness. That wasn't ideal. Then Eastbourne, everything seemed to fall right for Madison Keys, my pick. Obviously, Jelena Rybakina pulled out before her first round match, or second round, because she got a bye through the first. No, it was first round in the end. I think Keys was due to face Karolina Muchova yesterday, who looked really good actually in her first tournament back. Muchova pulling out as a precaution, making sure she gives that wrist some rest ahead of Wimbledon. And then Keys was playing Leylah Fernandez today, and she didn't play very well at all. She was lucky to win the second set, making lots of unforced errors, and Fernandez won 6-3 in the third. So it's going to be Fernandez against Daria Kasatkina in the final. I suppose the ones to take out of this week, Muchova, as I mentioned, who just looked right back on it. Fantastic after 10 months out. As I say, obviously that worry about her wrist. And Jasmine Paolini, who I don't think had won a main draw match on grass before this week, or very few. And she beats a pretty decent yardstick on grass in Katie Bolter. She's a really good returner of serve. She did lose to Daria Kasatkina earlier today. I'm not sure she's a contender. She has been handed a nice draw at Wimbledon. Obviously, we'll look at that shortly. Just a word of warning about Eastbourne this week. It's played really slowly. I worked out the service hold percentage earlier, and it came out at 63.9, which is glacial for grass. I mean, on grass, you're looking at figures north of 70. I mean, Eastbourne was 71 last year. Even Birmingham last week, which wasn't all that quick, that was 67.3. So Eastbourne has played pretty slowly this week. But, it's all about Wimbledon now, third major of the year, and starts on Monday.
Yeah, I think the most thing you said there is Eastbourne's slowing down. Wimbledon's always been a tournament over the last few years that has got slower and slower, which has led to more favourites winning. But the women's draw throws up some unexpected winners, like Vondrousova winning last year, shocked him. We've seen big price finalists, big price semi-finalists. Before we go into the bracket, as you say, it was a bit of a lopsided draw. I think the top half is a lot stronger than the bottom half of the draw. Let's have a look at the conditions. What are we going to expect? The weather looks quite fair for Wimbledon. The court speed pretty slower than normal. But what are we looking for? What is it telling you what we should be looking for over the next fortnight?
Yeah, well, last year it was fairly slow for grass, but it wasn't the slowest, but it wasn't the quickest. Service hold percentage, as just mentioned, figures there. Wimbledon last year was 70.4, 12th overall on the tour as a whole. So, I mean, if you've been watching some of this week's action, it's fractionally slower than Bad Homburg this week. About the same as Bad Homburg, really. Yeah, the weather doesn't look too bad for a change. We're going to have the odd rain interruption, of course. The middle Sunday looks like it could be a washout. Of course, there'll be some play on centre court and number one because they have roofs. But, it doesn't look to be too bad weather-wise. And as you say, we had that shock last year with Marketa Vondrousova winning the title. She comes into this under a bit of an injury cloud. She fell in the Berlin tournament last week and injured her hip. Ons Jabeur's been the runner-up last 2 years. Jelena Rybakina won it in 2022. Ashley Barty in 2021. I mean, she looked a player that would definitely win Wimbledon at some point, and she did in 2021 and then retired not that long after. Simona Halep won it in 2019, and then you're going back to Angelique Kerber in 2018, and before that you've got the likes of Serena, of course, and Petra Kvitova, the two-time winner. It is a tournament which, the players that are experienced on grass and have games for grass, and especially having a big serve and volley, of course, coming into the net, it's a good tactic on grass, will tend to do well. But, you look at Halep and Kerber, who you wouldn't have said were natural grass court players given their game, but have amassed a lot of experience. And I have been mentioning it a lot in the warm-ups. The grass court season is very short now. It's a lot shorter than it used to be. So a lot of these players don't have much experience on grass, and that's the case for the world number one as much as anyone. Iga Swiatek, her best showing at Wimbledon so far was reaching the quarterfinals last year, where she went out to Elina Svitolina, and it looks like she's got a pretty tough draw this time.
Yeah, I think the bracket is definitely tougher in the top half of the draw. You mentioned some big favourites there who've gone on to win it, obviously domination by Serena Williams, Kvitova. But there's always been some nice prize finalists. You would get, or semi-finalists, people give you a good run at Wimbledon who come out of nowhere. It's a tournament that you do get a few shocks in, especially in the women's draw. But this tournament here, this women's draw, is an intriguing one because it is a very, very open betting event. Usually at Wimbledon, we have a favourite that's very, very short. This time around with Bet Rivers, there's a lot of people in with a chance on the betting. A lot of young ladies who have got a chance of winning this. Obviously, it's dominated by the top four, but you can go down to about the 20th of this to the 30th of this, and you can think they've got a chance. Before we give the betting, let's have a look at the draw. Iga Swiatek is in that top half of the draw. She's the number one seed, and she opens up against Sophie Kenin, which is a very difficult opening. She's going to be a heavy favourite, and she probably will come through it, but that is a difficult match. In her section of draw, she's got Garcia, who's capable of brilliance or capable of absolutely terrible performances. Ostapenko, she's in there as well. Vondrousova, the Wimbledon Championship, that's all in Q1. In Q2, we have Rybakina, Kalinskaya, Samsonova, Onjabeur, two-time finalist here, but really a player that doesn't look at all like she can win challenge from me. I think she's a fave. Katie Bolter, Pegula, Svitolina, who is a player I've never been really too keen about her on grass, despite I think she made the semi-finals one here, didn't she, Svitolina? But I think she's more of a clay course or a hard court. I'm not quite convinced by her, and obviously at the age she is now. In Q3, now this is where it's a little bit easier. In Q3, you have Ken Win Zheng. We have Alexandrova, who starts off an opener against Emma Raducanu in what is going to be a real great first-round match. Head across to the Bet Rivers website for all the odds on that one. They'll have about 65 different markets available on that match. Sakari, and then we have Sabalenka. I think out of all the Seeley players has been given the easiest draw in Q3. Q4, Paolini, as you said, improvement. She'll be scheduled to play Noskova, the young player who's already beaten Swiatek this season. She's scheduled for the last 32. Madison Keys, we tipped her last week not only to win in Eastbourne, but we also took a nice big price about her here at Wimbledon, and she's a little bit lower than that. So we've got a nice little bet already before we start on Madison Keys. The draw's been quite kind to her in Q4, and in there we also have Navarro. Osaka is a dangerous floater, and Coco Gauff, who burst onto the Wimbledon scene when she beat Venus Williams I think she was a 15-year-old on court number one. I was actually watching that match. I remember going to Wimbledon to watch that match. It was a crazy match. I lost my money because I said this young girl cannot beat Venus Williams. Venus Williams will come back in set number two. And I left my money behind at SW19, as I've done many, many a time. Okay, that is the draw. My first reaction when the draw came out this morning, I'm away for the weekend, and that's why the internet's not so great here. So I apologise for any internet issues we may have. But my first reaction to the draw, when I finally got internet, was that I thought the top half was a lot tougher than that bottom half. And I thought the bottom half, you in Q3, Q4, you've got an outstanding chance, especially with the each way that Bet Rivers are offering on the women's draw here.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the first quarter actually could be the toughest, which is the quarter, which of course contains Iga Swiatek. The second quarter, Jelena Rybakina. think, assuming all is well with her, obviously she's had some illness issues of late. I think the second quarter looks fairly good for Rybakina. I mean, there are threats in there, the likes of Ludmila Samsonova, who's her serves working, is quite dangerous. Onjabeur in that second quarter. Jessica Pegula, who won her first grass court tournament last week, but then she did lose to Emma Raducanu this week. That was Raducanu's first win over a top 10 player, which is quite some stat given that she's a Grand Slam champion. It was actually the first time she's taken a set for top 10 player.
Wow. Because,
of course, when she won the US Open, she didn't face one player in the top 10. She got a very nice draw through. Third quarter is Sabalenka's. And as you say, that doesn't say it's not the most difficult. I mean, she could face Donna Vekic in round two, who's, as we speak, about to bagel Victoria Tomova in the semi-finals in Bad Homburg. And Vekic has a 6-2 head-to-head record over Sabalenka. So that would be a bit of a roadblock, perhaps, for Sabalenka. And then perhaps the quarterfinals. I mean, she could face Karolina Muchova in round four. Quarterfinals, looking at the likes of Raducanu, Qinwen Zheng, Alexandrova, Sakkari. I mean, no one really to give her. You'd think that would be too difficult. And then in the fourth quarter, it's probably the weakest of the lot. Coco Gauff, she's the number 2 seed, of course. Her run doesn't look too difficult until round 4, when she could face someone like Victoria Azarenka, Karolina Pliskova, former finalist, Naomi Osaka, who I think's a pretty short price based on what she's shown on grass. And in the quarterfinals, could possibly Madison Keys is in that bottom quarter. Jasmine Paolini's in that bottom quarter, as is Bianca Andreescu. So, the top half does look a good deal stronger. If you're looking at the each-way value, as you say, it's definitely worth perhaps looking at the bottom half. Yes, we're on Madison Keys already. We backed her at $33 last week. She's now $22. So, we've got a bit of a bigger price. Hopefully she can play herself into form. She's not played well this week. If she can play herself into some form, she could go deep. And I mentioned Karolina Muchova, who looked right back on it this week. And her draw, I say, in that third quarter doesn't look the worst. It's an interesting draw, but definitely stronger in the top half.
I'm going to make a little bit of a case for the defence for Madison Keys this week because it was so windy at Eastbourne. The conditions weren't very good. It's always been a windy track, as we mentioned before, but the conditions today against Fernandez weren't great. It was quite chilly. There was a lot of wind around. She made a lot of errors, and it looked as though she was just going through the motions. And, it is a tournament a week before a major. You do get shocks. You do get players just go there, finely tuning their game. She got to the semi-finals, which in her opinion, her eyes, would be a good sort of run. She got a few matches under her belt. And I think we should be very, very happy with the draw we've been given there at 33 to the 30 that in that fourth quarter, because I believe that is the weakest section by far. So I think we've got a good chance there. I like that. A lot of people might be watching this show for the very first time because it's Wimbledon, obviously the biggest tennis Grand Slam, obviously the US Open for the Americans, but obviously Wimbledon for us over here. But Wimbledon is obviously a little bit more traditional. There'd be a lot of money bet here on Wimbledon and across the globe. But if you're watching this show for the first time, you might not be familiar with the word each way. Now, what that means is that we will give you at BetRivers half the odds of your winner selection. So if a player is 20 to 1 and you want to bet her each way, half of your bet will be on her to win the tournament and the other half will be on her to make the final, and you'll get half the odds of her winner price. So if she's 20 to 1, she'll be 10 to 1. If she's 10 to 1, she'll be 5 to 1 to make the final. So effectively you have 2 wagers, one of them to win the tournament, one of them to make the final. And in tennis betting, when you have lopsided draws like this, and especially in the men's draw, which I've just done a show with Sean Calvert, which is a very lopsided draw, there is great value on the each-way market, and you're very lucky to have that offer given to you from BetRivers. Okay, let's have a look at this betting here. I mean, it's very, very interesting. And all throughout the tournament we've been speaking about, in the build-up to Wimbledon, every time we've mentioned it, Rory, the first person you said, I think, you must have said this 10 times to me, I think Rybakina wins Wimbledon. That's what you said to me. Now, she's coming retired from her last tournament. She's the third favourite at 5-1, but there's two players above her. Sabalenka is now a 3-1 favourite. So just a 3-1 favourite. It's not like it's -110s or we've seen this is very wide open. 3-1 Sabalenka to win Wimbledon. Iga Swiatek 4-1, never got past the quarterfinals. 4-1 to win her first Wimbledon championship. Rybakina 5-1 to win her second. Coco Gauff 7-1. She's got in the US Open, but Wimbledon, everyone expects her to do well. I'm not so sure. The slower it is, Gauff, the better. I think it's a quick Wimbledon. I think Gauff's in trouble. On Jabeur 12-1. I wouldn't bet her with counterfeit money. She's 12-1. Naomi Osaka 14-1, unseeded in the easiest section Q4, but again, grass has never been her service, and her preparation to Wimbledon hasn't been great. Jess Pegula 20-1. Madison Keys, I like the chances of our girl there. She's 22-1. Raducanu 23-1. Honestly, this girl, she could be the most overhyped player or a sportswoman in history. She's going to go out in round one against Alexandrova. I can't see her getting past her. Only one win against a top 10 player in her career, and she's about 18 to be the Wimbledon champion. Not for me. Then we have 27-1 Andreeva. I mean, she could be the real deal. She's got a favourable draw as well. Andreeva, the teenage sensation from Russia. Collins 35-1, and then we have some big prices at 40-1, including the Wimbledon champion Vondrousova, who's struggling from injury. What do you think here, Rory? I mean, I've just given you a list of 10 players there. Automatically, I'm going to put a line through Jabeur. I'm going to put a line through Osaka. I'm going to put a line through Pegula. I'm going to put a line through Raducanu. So it really only it's the top four, which is obvious. Then we've got Keys and Draven. I think we might have to look even further down the list if we're looking for more value.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would put a line through Swiatek, to be honest.
That one goes well on this show. There's a lot of Iga Swiatek fans. There's a lot of people here. I think it's J-Rod who follows this. Who mentioned
J-Rod, yeah.
He loves Iga Swiatek. He's made her more money than anybody in any sport. So this is a brave. What's the reasoning? What's the reasoning for that?
I think I've said it a few times before. Her game isn't suited for grass. It's that simple. We said her best showings reaching the quarters last year. She likes slower courts where the ball sits up, and she doesn't get that at Wimbledon. Her serve's improved, but she's coming here straight from Roland Garros. She hasn't played a grass court tournament for Wimbledon. I've mentioned before how the grass court season's quite short every year now, and players don't get that practice like they used to. And this is why I think, Vondrousova was such a shock last year because she'd not shown really any form of grass before winning Wimbledon. But generally, players that win Wimbledon have shown form on grass. And Swiatek just hasn't. And she hasn't had a chance to get practice on grass. And I personally think she's more worried about the Olympics this year. Her father rode at the Olympics. And obviously the Olympic Games are going to be held at Roland Garros again. So, she's going from Roland Garros to grass, back to clay. This is almost like, obviously she's got to play Wimbledon, but it feels almost like she doesn't, this is a tournament she could do without this year. I think she'll, in later years, she might do an Yvonne Lendl in later years and really try to win Wimbledon, make a concerted effort to get more practice on grass. And I'm not sure she'll skip Roland Garros, but you never know, she might. She'll probably win 8 or 9, maybe more. But I just don't see Wimbledon being top of her priority list this year. I think, especially with the Olympics, it's once every 4 years, with it being at Roland Garros, where she's so good. Just, I think, and you've seen the reverse as well. So someone like Emma Raducanu was offered a wild card into the Olympic Games, and she doesn't want to because it would probably involve switching back to clay. And then, of course, after that, you're into the American swing leading up to the US Open. So you're seeing a few players just thinking, well, I don't want to go to Roland Garros and get thrashed. So, let's skip the Olympics, settle back into the normal tour, back on the US hard courts before the US Open. I've got quite a few reasons to be against Swiatek. I understand, I understand her price. I mean, she's still the best player in the world, but she's just not shown it on grass. And coming into Wimbledon without a warm up, I just think is a big negative.
There you have it. Lying through Iga Swiatek, the world number one by some distance. But Rory has given some great reason in there not to oppose the poll. So if you're going to oppose the poll, the question I raised at the beginning, Rybakina, you told me many times she's going to win it. Is she one of your bets?
I think at $5, I think she is a bet. I think in that top half, if she's on her game, she comes through it without too much difficulty. In her draw, she's got a couple of what you'd think were quite easy starters. Round 3, it gets a little more difficult. Leylah Fernandez, who obviously won today, or Caroline Wozniacki. Round 4, possibly Samsonova, who she doesn't have a good record against. And then the quarterfinals, it's Jabeur, who she lost to last year at Wimbledon, Katie Bolter or Jessica Pegula. But I do think if Rybakina is at the top of her game, I was a bit annoyed that she pulled out of Eastbourne. It helped our keys bet, but she pulled out so late and she was practicing at Wimbledon. I think there should be consequences for players who, obviously people buy tickets and they're expecting to see the best players and they don't turn up. But I think if Rybakina is up for this, I think she comes through the top half reasonably comfortably. And that is, it's not. I think the tough bit of the top half is in the first quarter. I think Swiatek's quarter is quite nasty. Swiatek, her draw, Ken in first round. I mean, she's up and down these days, but on her day, she's still very difficult. Fran Jones or Petra Martic in round 2 shouldn't cause too many difficulties. Round 3, Yulia Putintseva, who won on grass last week, first tournament win. Katerina Siniakova, who's a good grass court player. Angelique Kerber would be an outside shot of getting through to round 3, but obviously she's a past Wimbledon winner. So that'd be round 3. That's difficult. Round 4, Caroline Garcia, whose serve makes her very dangerous on grass. Alia Tomljanovic, who reached the final last week in Birmingham. She's useful on grass with her serve. And Yelena Ostapenko, who, lest we forget, has a 4-0 head-to-head record against Swiatek. So, it's not an easy draw for Swiatek. That top quarter is difficult. And then in the quarterfinals, potentially Marketa Vondrousova, if she's fit, Danielle Collins or Barbara Krejcikova. So I think the top quarter is fiendish, and Swiatek, with her lack of grass court play, experience, preparation, etc., is going to find that very tough.
Yep, tough draw for Iga Swiatek. Rory knows that she's a fave for him. Rybakina, that's our main tip to win Wimbledon Championship at 5-1. We got some other outsiders you think could go well at big prices.
Yeah, looking at that bottom quarter, I think we can definitely have a bet in the bottom quarter, and the bottom half. We can have a bet, and I've mentioned already. I despite her big absence, despite pulling out of Eastbourne this week as a precaution because of her wrist, I think Karolina Muchova is worth a bet at $50. She just has the game for grass. She serves well. I mean, she was serving aces this week. It's like after her wrist surgery, she's serving better than ever. She's got the variety in her game. She's got excellent slice. She is. She's very much. I remember when I probably said this on the pod before, when she beat Ashley Barty at the Australian Open one year, and it was like she out-Bartied Barty. It was two very similar players with that all-round game, asking questions of their opponents, mixing it up. And she's just got the game for grass. And obviously, she reached Roland Garros final last year. She was a break up in the decider against Iga Swiatek and then lost. Yes, her fitness is a worry, as always. It's always a worry for Karolina Muchova. But at $50, if she was fully fit and she came in with perfect prep or whatever, I think she'd be close to single figures. So I think it should be something like a 12 or a 14 to 1 shot. So I think the risk is in with her price at $50. But looking at her draw, I mean, Paula Badosa's never done anything on grass. That's her first round opponent. Andreeva round 2, again, a player who hasn't done anything on grass yet. Kasatkina round 3 might be tricky. Kasatkina's got the sort of game that might give Mukova a problem. She is quite useful on grass, but she struggles against power. Mukova doesn't have that, but I still fancy her to win that. And then round 4, Sabalenka or Vekic. And Mukova beat Sabalenka at Roland Garros last year. Of course, quicker surface plays a bit more into Sabalenka's hands, but I think Mukova's variety gives her a real chance. I don't think it's the worst draw in the world for Mukova. So staking wise, I mean, I'm not going to go overboard on Rybakina, even at $5. I think she's a point each way for me, and Mukova just half a point each way. I think they've got chances. When I look at the betting, and you went through some of the names and put a line through quite a few. I think on grass, I'd put a line through quite a lot of players here, just because they don't have that experience and they don't have that, because everyone plays on these slower hard courts most of the year. That's what their games are kind of suited to. They like the ball sitting up. They like the ball not going too quickly. Obviously on grass, the ball keeps low and it's quick, and it gets quicker as the time goes on. The courts wear out. It's not like, clay or hard courts. The grass gets worn. So bounces get more difficult. The bounce gets lower. It speeds up. And I think that's a real problem for a lot of the women in this field. So I'm quite happy with three almost against the rest of the field in Rybakina, Keys and Mukova. With Sabalenka, she's too short for me. I think she's got a good draw. She's not reached the final at Wimbledon, which you kind of think, if she hasn't by now, why would she do it this year when she hasn't been at her best? She could well reach the final, but as I say, her draw with Vekic in there, does make me think that she's one to avoid.
The one thing that Sabalenka has come over the last 6 months or so, she's been mad on Instagram. She's become an Instagrammer rather than a professional tennis player. She seems to be more obsessed about her reels and her posts. It's like following Sean Calvert. It's crazy on there. She's everywhere. But no, she's become very obsessed with that. Maybe that, she's had obviously a bit of tragedy in her life as well. A big tragedy in her life as well. So they make me be trying to have fun on their Instagram. Might find tennis not so much of a challenge because her form isn't great, as you say. And I think the Wimbledon's getting slower. Sabalenka needs a real quick Wimbledon, real quick court to use her power to win through. So there it is. Sabalenka, a line through that. Swiatek, a lot of players there that Rory doesn't like. We do have 3 official picks on the outright market. We've already given Keys at 33-1. Our main pick is Rybakina at 5-1. Rory has mentioned on the podcast pretty much every week in the build-up to the Wimbledon Championships, he wants to get with the former champion. She's in Q2. The draw has been favourable. We like the price. Rybakina is our main pick. And we're going to go for Mukova at a very big 50-1. Obviously, an injury concern, but that is factored into 51. I agree with Rory completely. If she was fit, she'd be a fifth of that price. You can get 50-1. So that's definitely been factored in. Anything else you've seen on the BetRivers website that's taking your attention, or anything else you like?
Yeah, we've also got on BetRivers a performance market, which is basically on selected players to reach the quarterfinals or not. And heading that market, obviously, the tournament favourite, Arina Sabalenka, who is -200 to reach the quarterfinals and +150 not to reach the quarterfinals. I'm a little tempted by that, as I mentioned, because of Vekic in round 2, Mukova perhaps in round 4. The +150 would be a lean. But I'm all over Swiatek. Swiatek is -125 to reach the quarterfinals and -103 not to reach the quarterfinals. And I think that -103 is big. As mentioned, her draw is really difficult. I think she faces three tough matches in the first 4. And given all the reasons I've laid out earlier, I think she's a player to oppose. So I'll be having a 2-point bet on Swiatek not to reach the quarterfinals at -103. It's not often I go for a minus money bet, but it's only just minus. So I really like that, because I think, if she gets to the quarterfinals, she could well win it. Though perhaps Rybakina would be her semi-final opponent. But I just can't, with her preparation, lack of grass court experience, I'm very much against her.
Rory is doing his level best to lose the subscribers here. I know there's a huge amount of Iga Swiatek fans who watch this show. She's always very popular in the comments. Give us your comment. What do you think about Rory's bet there? -103. Swiatek not to make the quarterfinals. World number one by some distance. I know many of you will disagree with that. Some of you may disagree with that and may agree with that. Give us your opinion on what you think is going to happen this week within the comments box. Remember to subscribe to Betting Weekly Studios on YouTube. Give us a follow on Instagram. Sean Cav will be at Wimbledon on day number 1, our Monday, and also later on in the week as well. He'll be posting all his picks in play on the Instagram account at Because We've Been, and also on Twitter. And make sure you download this podcast, Betting Weekly WTA, for all the best prices throughout the season. And after this, we've got the countdown to the US Open. So it's a load of action going on this summer. And also Euro 2024, the action really hots up as the knockout stages start this weekend. Things can only get better for England. They're talking of draws. They've been given the easiest draw since the people in Q4 here, since Madison Keys. So see if they can capitalise on the draw as well. Rory, thank you very much as always for joining me. Really enjoyed this. We've had a couple of near misses, but Rory's still in front on the year, and we've had some near misses with Muka. Hopefully, we can get through at 50-1. But Rory has stuck with his girl throughout this last 2 months. He's always said Rybakina. A little bit of a scare coming into the tournament with withdrawing from Eastbourne, but it hasn't stopped Rory going in on Rybakina to win Wimbledon. Can she do it? We'll find out over the next couple of weeks here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match and Betting Weekly WTA. Take care, Rory. Enjoy your own time. Have a great week. And let's wait. Let's see what happens. Wimbledon starts Monday. Head across to the Bet Rivers website. First round matches as well. About 30 different markets on 128 different matches across the men's and women's draw. It's all going to be happening. And you can watch live and bet live on Bet Rivers. Take care.